Okay, so here we go. We've got a nice little castle just behind me here. And what you might not know about this castle is that once upon a time there was a king who lived there. And this king, he was celebrating. Quite what he was celebrating, I do not know, but he was having a big celebration. And to this celebration, there were all the usuals, there were all the nobles and the aristocrats. There was also the entertainment. And the storyteller that came to do that entertainment that night was the most superb storyteller that you can imagine. Better, I have to say, than even the Finnish Vane of Moiren or the Viking Bragi Sonnesson. He was an amazing storyteller. A true troubadour. He could juggle and play instruments, but when he told a story, everybody stopped and stared and listened agog. And right at the very end, it was the king himself who stood up and gave the loudest round of applause and cheering. And from that storyteller's coat, the storyteller slipped a golden ball and said, "There is nothing more that I love than a good audience," and so threw the ball to the king. And then the storyteller bowed low and left to go and tell stories elsewhere, as good storytellers have a wont to do. The king was left the next day, picking up and tidying up a little bit after the mess, just, a few bottles of beer around his throne. And he found that ball again and he thought, oh, yes, yes. And he had a good look at it. And it had fine engraving all the way round, but round the very centre of it, there was a strip. And on that strip, it said, "Give this to the one you love the most." And when the king looked at that, he felt quite proud. He thought, wow, out of everybody here, the storyteller loved me the most. Oh, well, as he should. I'm the king, after all. And then the king thought again, "Give this to the one you love the most." Well, of course, the king thought, I should, by honour and by rights, give it to the queen. But there is that little chambermaid I've had my eye on for some time, and well, maybe this might just be the gift to get her to my bedchamber. And so the next time he was wandering down the corridor and he saw the chambermaid rushing with arms filled with blankets, the king said, just a moment, my dear, before you go rushing off. I have a small something for you. You have been honouring me so well with all of your chores around the castle. I shall give you this. And maybe you would like to show your appreciation to me some way? Well, the chambermaid, she took the ball, and in that moment of taking it, she saw those words, "Give this to the one you love the most." She saw the way that the king was leering at her, and she did not love him the most. And so she simply bobbed a quick curtsy and said, "Thank you, Your Highness," and dashed away. A few moments later, she found herself at the guard's house, for there she went to find the head of the guard, a handsome young youth, and she said, "Brother, out of all that are in the castle, you have always looked out for me, and so I give this ball to you." And her brother, he took the ball, and there she looked eagerly at him, waiting for him to give the ball back. But he simply smiled and said, "Thank you. Now I must be about my duty. I'll see you later on," and walked away very fast. Well, the chambermaid felt quite sorrowful as she watched her brother wander off. And the head of the guard, Well, he walked down corridor after corridor after corridor until he found himself at the Queen's chamber. And he knocked on the door, and she opened up and beamed a big smile, and she said, "I've got it all ready, come inside." And immediately they sat down at a table where a chessboard was set up, and they started to play. That head of the guard was delighted by the Queen. She was quick, she was wise, and she was the only person that could outwit him at chess. And for that he loved her. And so, when they had finished their game, he passed the ball over to her and said, "Your Highness, I give you this with all honor and duty." And she took the ball and she saw how shiny it was, and then she read the words and she felt a little abashed and said, "Well, thank you. You've probably got lots of things to do. I'll see you next week for a game, or maybe not if you're busy. Goodbye now," and threw him out the door and dropped the ball in her fruit bowl. And then she went to go and look out the window, as she often did. She had been without a child no matter how much she had tried, and so she would spend her days looking down into the courtyard. And there she would see the chambermaids and the laundry girls playing and chatting as they went about their work, and her heart yearned. She wanted so much for a child of her own that there was one particular laundry girl who she had taken to, and no matter how lowly that girl had been born, that girl felt like her own child. And so when the girl came up and delivered the fresh laundry, the Queen said, "Wait a moment, I have something for you. It is a treasured gift. Here." And she gave that laundry girl the ball. The girl looked at the ball. She had never been given a gift before, and nothing so sparkly and so precious. She looked at the Queen and said, oh, thank you so much." And the Queen there waited with open hands, waiting for the ball to be passed back. But the girl simply said, "I know who would like to play with this," and dashed out of the room, down through the corridors, out into the courtyard, and she gave a high-pitched whistle, and a few moments later, a scraggy dog that always hung around the kitchens came running through, wagging its tail. And the girl, she said, look what I've got for you. Let's play." And so she threw the ball, and the dog ran with tongue lolloping out, caught the ball, and the girl waited for the dog to return it. But the dog, he dashed off, and he ran through the corridors, and he ran this way and that till he found himself into the throne room. And there, sat upon the throne, was the king, looking sad and melancholy that his love had been thrown aside. But a few moments later, that scraggy, stinking, smelly dog had leapt upon his lap and dropped the ball, and there was licking at his long beard. Well, the king wouldn't let it be known, but he loved that dog and would never get it thrown out of the palace when it was around. And as he looked down to the weight in his lap, he saw the ball covered in slobber. "How on earth did you get this? What a journey this must have been on to end up in your slobbery jaws." "My word," said the king. And the dog, who cared not whether that ball was given back to him or not, went dashing off to see what scraps he could find. And the king was left alone, looking at those words yet again. "Give this to the one that you love the most." And this time he knew he would think more carefully about who he would give it to. And so, by this way and that way, that ball ended up into my hands, and now into yours.